Well, hello, sports fans. Larry Eater here, Run Blog Run. This is Athletics Chat number 92, the good-looking gentleman in the middle with the blue sweater today. One of the colors in the Serbian flag is none other than Stuart Weir. Stuart was just in Belgrade, Serbia, and we're going to continue our Love Fest. Look at that mug, huh? Look, and we're going to continue our Love Fest about the World Indoor Championships in Belgrade. Stuart, greetings and salutations.
Hello, yes. I mean, the great thing about the mug is, you know what it's like. They give you a bag and they put goodies in it, and most of them you don't want. But the mug I brought home.
That's
and
good.
I'm
Yeah, I have
drinking my coffee out of it.
my mug from Helsinki in 2005. And as I was going through T-shirts yesterday, I pulled out my Helsinki 2005 T-shirt, and it fits, and that's all good. And it's the little things in life.
There was a Belgrade T-shirt which I liked as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So I did well.
So we were talking last week about the things we enjoyed about the Belgrade World Indoor Champs, and thought we'd continue on that same vein. Let's start with what was your favorite? Do you have three favorite women's performances?
Yes. I mean, I thought the pole vault was brilliant because, if you think back 4 years to the last World Championship in Birmingham, Katie Najot wasn't really a serious threat for Sandy Morris. But in the 4 years that have happened, Katie has got better and better and better, has become a 490 jumper, has become the Olympic champion. And in Belgrade, she had 100% record until the last type which she failed. Sandy, on the other hand, had failed earlier. So you might have thought that Katie is the Olympic champion. Katie has 100% record. But you know what the old saying about when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And Sandy Morris showed us that she is still a force to be reckoned with, and she is the world indoor champion. But I don't think this is the last conversation we will have this year about the women's pole vault and about those two friends and now training partners, Sandy having joined Katie with Brad Walker. So I think this one could run and run. And then, of course, there's Sidorova and Holly Bradshaw. There's an awful lot of uncertainty as to who is going to win in Oregon, and it'll be fun to watch it all.
I thought the women's pole vault lived up way better than expectations. It was great to see Sandy and Katie have good days on the same day. They took it from different approaches, and we were looking at my girlfriend and I were looking at some pictures of the women's pole vault. And she was looking at the pictures of Sandy Morris, and her comment was, "She looks so fierce," and that's when she gets her game face on. My gosh, she's all there, and so was Katie. And Katie had talked to us earlier in the season about how do you come down from being the Olympic champion and you build new goals. Obviously, she's done that, and yeah, I agree with you. I thought the women's pole vault was fantastic.
Another quick comment on that. I mean, I think if you're right, Katie has been very honest about the challenge of winning the Olympics and keeping going. And she finished last season badly at Pre and in Zurich, where she told me she just didn't have anything more.
Yeah, no, I think perhaps it's sometimes we don't take into consideration. Everybody thinks about the physical needs of being an elite athlete, but the psychological needs, the spiritual needs all come together in that moment when you're competing. Are you going to clear that height of, 485 or 490? What if you've never done it before? Tina Sutej, cleared a couple heights that she had not surpassed before. And, we know Tina because she competed over in the U.S. at University of Arkansas. And obviously, she competes in the European Championships, and we've seen her at some of the other big meets, but she really put it together. And to go from...
Well, now, I do say when I was leaving one evening, I suddenly found myself walking out with her, and I found her a charming lady, as well as everything else.
Yeah, no, she's we've watched her compete for a while. It's fascinating to see athletes in front of us go to that next level, and there's always the question is, how do you do that? You look at, Katie coming onto the picture, and like you said, in 2018 in Birmingham, she had a rough day. Sandy won, and now 4 years later, after Sandy's had some issues too, she comes back. So I think, as you said, Eugene is wide open in the women's pole vault, but I believe with you, we will be seeing these three women playing significant parts there, and along with Sidorova, if she's allowed to compete, and with Holly, I think Holly would have shaken it up a little bit. She's at that next level now, and but I also think she was smart because she's got the Commonwealth, Europeans, and the world champs this summer.
I think she would have been there. She just picked up an injury and thought, look, this is a long summer. Let's not do anything stupid.
We talked before about the women's 800 with Ajay Wilson. I thought that Ajay showed more self-control than I've seen from her in a long time. Normally, she just goes out hard and stays with it as long as she can. This time, there were real tactics, and it worked perfectly for her because she developed one of the longest breaks between first and second in 800-meter indoor history. Were you surprised when Keely Hodgkinson announced she wasn't competing?
Yes. I was surprised because I had no inside information on it. On Thursday, she was at the press conference, and I even asked her a question. And then on the day of her race, I got an email headed, and I've learned now, if you get an email from British Athletics that says update, take it seriously because it doesn't mean update, it means withdrawal.
Yeah.
Because we had two of them. One was Elliot Giles update and the Keely Hodgkinson update. What Christian Malcolm said was that it was a precaution. I don't know. There's a question in the back of my mind. I don't know the answer. Did she get injured in Belgrade? Was she carrying something? If she was carrying something, what on earth was she doing there in the first place? Particularly talking about doing the relay as well as the 800. I have no information there, really. So I go back to Ajay for a moment. Absolutely a great run. But, dare I say it, Ajay is not guaranteed a place in the US team for Oregon. With Ating Mu, with Raven Rogers, medalists in the Olympics. And, there'll be another young 800 lady who will appear in the scene. So that's going to be an incredibly competitive event in the US Championship, with frankly, probably any of those three being good enough to win the world title, provided they get the chance.
Yeah. No, I think you got to put Kate Grace in there. for the U.S. who's had stayed away from the 800 for several years and came back last summer, ran a 157 and change. And so, yeah, no, the women's 800 for U.S. And the British women's 800 team will be both interesting races to watch.
Well, I mean, yeah, Britain, there are 3 women in the final in Tokyo.
I recall at the Prefontaine, wasn't Athing and Keeley chatting about a 4x8 battle between U.S. and Britain?
There's been speculation about that, yeah.
That would be, well, there's going to be an interesting one at the upcoming U.S. Penn Relays. On Running is a sponsor now, and they are putting together a 4x1 team against several other global teams. It should be really interesting to see. And it's a fun relay. It doesn't happen often. So we'll have to see, we'll have to watch that one. What would you say would be your third most popular women's event in retrospect from Belgrade?
I mean, the women's long jump was phenomenal in the sense that Serbia had only had one serious medal chance, and that was Ivana Stanovic. He said at the press conference, her plan had actually been to be retired by now. Her plan had been to win the Olympics in Tokyo and retire. But then, because she didn't win the Olympics, she decided she didn't want to end on a failure. And so she went on. And to start with, you had Essie Brumey and Lorraine Ugen, both jumping in the 680s. So, you know, that was pretty solid performances. There was the pressure on Stanovic, who said at the press conference, you know, last time I was in Belgrade for the championship, I jumped 724. I don't want to make a big announcement, but I'm capable of doing that again. So quite how you make that, let me give you a tip. That is how you make a big announcement without making a big announcement.
Yes.
And you know, with 2 people jumping 680, she was under pressure, and she did a 706. She made a funny comment at the press conference. She said she was pleased that Malaika wasn't there, you know, because the competition would be easier. And then she sort of tried to cover it by saying, "Although I do like to compete against the best in the world." And so, to me, that would be an interesting one in Eugene with Stanovic, you know, well capable of going over 7 meters. Mahambo, whose form last year, by her own admission, in that interview I did with her, was actually not very good throughout the year. I mean, she managed to peak at the Olympics, get the only 7-meter jump in that competition and win it. But I mean, she told me that she'd done well in the indoor season, then struggled with the transition to the longer run-up, managed to get it together for the Olympics, got injured immediately after the Olympics. With hindsight, should have shut down, but carried on and finished about 4th in the Diamond League final. So if you look at her overall season, it was very average. And she just happened to win that little event, whatever it's called, in Tokyo. But, you
That's
know,
true.
fully fit and firing Mahambo against Stanovic. You know, Essie Brumey was 1 round away from winning the Olympics herself in Tokyo. And sadly, Brittany Reese has pulled the plug in her career. She's been another great one. And, you know, Lorraine Ugen making a great point of not having a sponsor at the moment, but she's another 7-meter jumper. And, you know, she produced big jumps, both in the British trials and in the world indoors. And you know, you may not want to be jumping 7 meters indoors. You may want to keep it up for later. But I mean, I think she's back as a serious contender for a medal. You know, there's a few other long jumpers. Jasmine Sawyers has never quite fulfilled her potential. I mean, she did 690 last year, so I mean, she's not that far from a 7 meter jump. And so it's, I think the women's long jump will be another of those field events that will be really interesting.
No, I still think that Hessa Broom, our writer Deje Ogeyimbo wrote about her, and she gave Nigeria its first indoor world champs medal in 14 years, and first Olympic medal in 11. And she was fantastic. As you said, she competed really well. It'll be wonderful to see the women's long jump in Eugene. I mean, it's going to be highly competitive. But the statement that Ivana said reminded me of one by John Walker back in Montreal in '76. He was interviewed by a Runner's World writer who asked him, "What's your ideal field for the 1,500-meter final?" And Sir John Walker thought for a moment and smiled and replied, "I would like the field to be full of senior citizens." And what it meant, obviously, was he was quite worried as being the first man under 350 for the mile at the time, and silver medalist in the Commonwealth Games. He had a big target on his back. And a lot of people are going to have that, you know. I think among them, Shawnee Miller-Weibo with her fantastic 400-meter gold at the World Indoors. Femke Bol, I'll tell you, that woman should not be underestimated. She is deadly over the 400 flat and the 400 hurdles. And I seem to recall in 21, she broke national indoor records about 12 times, almost every time she ran during the indoor season. She looked fantastic this year. Let's stay with the 400 for a minute. Catherine Mary, the British 2000 Olympic medalist at 400. She's also the British national record holder. She was interviewed at the AW the other day, and when she was asked who could break her record of 49:41, she thought for a moment, smiled, and said, "Jody Williams." What do you think?
I mean, it's interesting how Judy started off as a sprinter, 100 and 200, and now she's concentrating on the 400. But of course, it does mean that she has got that real sprinting pace. I think that many people would say that Judy overachieved last year to make the Olympic final with very little experience of running the 400. So, yeah, I mean, if she can keep on improving, if she can keep fit, I think that why not?
What did you think?
She's a person I have a lot of time for as a person as well as an athlete.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed interviewing her on Socialing the Distance. I think she's got some social causes, especially women in her family's historical region in Africa, that she's trying to educate, and I really have time for that. I thought that she's very thoughtful in her approach, and she seems to really enjoy her running too, which is great. This is in no time frame, and you'd always expect this from me. The U.S. Did not medal in the 4x4 men or women's. In the men's, Isaiah Harris pulled a muscle with about 150 to go, and went from running 10:52 and 10:82 to 12:05 and 13 something, and the U.S. just missed making the final. The women's team was in it with a lap to go and missed the medal. and the British teams did too. Talk to me for a second about the British teams.
Well, the days in 2007, 16, 17, 18, when Britain was a cast iron for medal, those have gone. You know, the Christina Horrigal, Ailey Doyle, Perry Shakes Drayton, all retired. And we do not, at the moment, have women, we do not have 4 women of that caliber. And I mean, the men in Tokyo, we did not have a man in the individual 400. And we didn't we don't have a man on funding for individual 400 at the moment, because it's just, that's going through a difficult period. You know, both of ours made the final, but they were never really going to get a medal. I mean, Guy Learmonth ran in the relay team because we only had 3 genuine 400-meter runners because of an injury. But sadly, we're just in this period, you know, it goes in cycles, and we do not have the strength and depth that we used to have. You know, the Martin Rooney era has gone, and it'll take a while to build that up again. And you know, I think that you can look at the US not getting a medal, but it was the indoors, and not everyone was there, and all that. So I wouldn't do too much. I would expect US to be clearly in the medals in all the relays in Eugene.
I wrote a piece about the men's 60, and my belief is that the world champs in Eugene could not have scripted it better to have an Italian beat Christian Coleman, and that special Italian Marcel Jacobs, the crazy long jumper. The race was exciting. It was decided by 0.03 of a second. What else can you ask for? I thought that Christian was just a wee bit short of probably racing fitness. My belief is that a sprinter should have a racing effort about every 3 days. But I also think the U.S. totally underestimated Marcel Jacobs. And I think the rest of them, I don't think Europe did, but I think the U.S. did. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, Jacobs actually did in the final what he said he would do at the press conference, because he said he thought that Christian would get out fast, he would hang on to his coattails, and he would lunge to a line better than Christian did, which in a way he did.
Yeah. No, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
on the women, go ahead, please.
I just got to throw, I mean, the thing that we always have to keep saying is that we don't know what athletes' level of fitness is at this time of year. And I know athletes who told me they were going to the World Indoors just to see where they were. Let's get to a competition that isn't that important to me, and I'll learn where I am and what I need to work on. Whereas others were saying, you know, I could win a medal, and that's what I'm focused on. So I just don't know. Christian is not a man that I know, but, you know, all that he's gone through over the ban and all that, and what was said about him, you know, you got to be superhuman if that doesn't get to you in some way. And perhaps getting this championship out of the way and on with it. Marcel has had his issues too, because there have been sort of allegations against people who are in his entourage, which is a bit of a distraction. You know, he won the European indoor last year, and people said it was a bit of a fluke, and then he won the Olympics, people said it was a bit of a fluke. Reminds me of, you know, Greg, Greg Rutherford always felt that he didn't get the credit he deserved and walked into the press conference and said, "Well, gentlemen, I've slipped another one." So, I think we have to take Marcel seriously because I mean, he's won it twice. You can say, was everyone in the world there? Well, you can only beat the people who are, and he did it twice.
Yep, that's the whole thing. No, I think he is the fastest man in the world. The next one can be picked in Eugene, and I would not be surprised if Marcel wins again. I think that people just the other. I'll tell you right now too. My spoiler is Noah Lyles, because with what he ran indoors, if he can put it together outdoors, it's going to be fascinating to see. There's going to be some real fun stories in Eugene, and I, for one, I'm looking forward to it. Let's talk about.
Can I just throw in the name of Fred Curley?
Yes. Oh my gosh, he just ran now at 996 this weekend, and
yeah. Well, I had a talk with him, and I was going to write an article about why he had moved from the 400 to the 100. But unfortunately, he told me he hadn't. And that we should expect to see him running 100s, 200s, and 400s. And
wow.
We should expect to see him be equally competitive in all of them.
Wow. Pretty amazing, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now he's the men's pole vault. Will anybody challenge Mondo for a while, or is he?
I don't think so. But, I mean, there's motivation and there's motivation. And, lots of people are motivated to win. And in a field event, and they have a half-hearted attempt at the next height. But Mondo won, and then he said, "I'm going for 620," and he has two awful attempts where he doesn't get anywhere near it. And he sat on the foam for a moment, and I thought he was about to stand up and clap the crowd and go home and have his dinner. But no, he went back and he nailed it. And, I think that someday we are going to have a sensational news story that Mondo doesn't clear 6 meters. But I mean, it's just, he's so consistent. And he's just so in control of it. And he doesn't just have one way of doing it. I mean, he seems to me to jump with feel, that he'd start off at a particular height, and then he'd think, yeah, it's okay, I'll skip the next height. And then he clears the one afterwards.
It's amazing. Yeah, I thought that jump, and I agree with you, the jump was what surprised me in Belgrade was neither one of those first two attempts was close to 620. And he called whatever was inside him, the Super Mondo, feeling, and he put it together. And that was a brilliant clearance. And it was, and he got to hug his girlfriend and his mom and his dad, and the crowd just went absolute stark raving nuts. And I thought that was fantastic. And it was one of those moments that, it was one of the big moments. I mean, Yulimar Rojas is very entertaining and quite theatrical, and she's to the triple jump what Mondo is to the pole vault.
Yeah.
1574, mind-boggling.
Yeah. But you see, the other thing you need to grasp, which perhaps didn't come across as much on television, if that had been a Diamond League, they'd have shut everything down, and he would have been center stage. But there were 2 relays going on at the same time. So initially, they said to the relay people, "Hold on, we're just having a hold on this while Mondo jumps." And then they start the relay, and they say to Mondo, "This race is going to take about 5 minutes, so You need to keep yourself warm for 5 minutes before you can think about jumping again. And then that happened again with the other relay. So in a way, he wasn't in control of the timetable, which I think was probably a negative. That he might have thought, well, actually, I want to rest for 2 minutes, then I'm ready to go. But no, you have to sit there while the relay goes on. And again, I mean, I'm sure he watched a bit of the relay. That must have been a bit of a distraction. But when it came to the jump, he had it all. There was nothing else in his mind. So I thought that was actually superb mental strength, just to not to get flustered by being told you have to wait 5 minutes while we run a relay race, but to be in the right frame of mind to go for it. And I remember Jonathan Edwards once saying to me, sometimes I wish I had not jumped 18 meters, because if I had jumped 17.99, everyone would have said that's an amazing distance to jump. But now, he said, every time I jump, and I jumped 17.95, people say, oh, he failed. He didn't get 18 meters. And in a way, Mondo is now almost expected to break the world record every time he goes out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is a huge mantle to wear, I think, all the time. Speaking of mantles to wear, our friend Jakob Ingebrigtsen showed that he was human. The race was close to the very end when Tafara kind of outleaned him. And then we find out the next day that Mr. Ingebrigtsen has COVID. Do you think that played a factor in the race at all?
Well, I mean, when you said we discovered that he's human, I wasn't sure where you were going, whether you were going to talk about his defeat or the fact that he was sufficiently human that he could catch COVID.
Yeah, that too.
I'm sure it was a factor. I'm sure it was a factor.
Yeah.
I mean, I had COVID in early January, and I don't think I could run a 3:30 at the moment.
I get it. I mean, well, that's just on a good day, right? It takes some time. There's the story told with Nick Rose, European champion at 5,000 meters. When he was in the U.S., he bragged that you could wake him up at any time and he could run a 4:10 mile. So the story goes that he was woken up early in the morning and he went out and ran a 4:10 mile. Jakob is just an amazing athlete, and Tafara, is tough as nails and wanted to defend that. I thought what's interesting about Samuel Tafara was that in Birmingham, he won in 3:58, the slowest time ever in a World Indoor Champs. And then he wins in 3:32 here, the fastest time. So as our friend Jonathan Galt at Let's Run said, he's done both. And that's pretty a lot to admire.
Yeah. But let me tell you, I'm sure I told before, my favorite Jakob story was when he was at the Gateshead Diamond League. It was extremely wet. And someone said to him at the press conference, how do you feel about running in potentially a cold, wet day? And Jakob looked at him and said, I'm from the west coast of Norway. Now, what was your question again about the weather?
No, he's always charming. I've done a couple interviews with him. Have you heard anything more about the health of his father?
No, I haven't.
Just was enjoyed seeing Gert at different meets, and he was always quite easy to chat with. So I was just kind of curious about him. What Mark Scott? Were you surprised by Mark Scott's medal?
Yes. I mean, I thought he did brilliantly. I mean, the word in the street was that he wouldn't have the pace at the end, but he just ran such a clever race. I just thought tactically he got it absolutely right. He didn't go too fast too early. He was in the right place when the finish came, and he had what it took to get in the medals. So, I mean, he was disappointed with Tokyo, And it was nice to see him starting 2022 with a really good race and a medal, something to build on.
Yeah, no, I thought it was pretty fantastic. Well, Stuart, you've survived Athletics Chat 92, my friend. Another week, another chat. Stay safe. Look forward to your columns this week. And thanks again for speaking to us so late in the evening.
Okay, good.
This is Larry Eater with RunBlogRun. Stuart Weir in the middle, the good-looking guy in the blue sweater. Enjoy Athletics Chat 92. Stay safe. Make sure you exercise every day and tell someone that you care about them. Okay? Talk to you soon. Well, hello, sports fans. Larry Eater, RunBlogRun. This is the epilogue where I talk to myself, Larry's monologue. And this is for Athletics Chat number 92. We were talking about Stuart Weir and I, Stuart's in Oxford, England. Of course, your response, the intellectual capital of the world. I'm in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, the cheese capital and beer capital of the world. And we were chatting about the World Indoor Champs, which happened in Belgrade, Serbia a week ago, which were fantastic. They were on Saturday during the 10 World Champ Indoor Finals. 10 different countries won gold medals. Pretty cool, huh? There were 619 athletes from 129 countries. I thought it was pretty cool. We watched it on Peacock TV and had the pleasure of seeing Rob Walker, who normally does World Athletics Radio, and Hannah England, a world champ medalist at the 1500, with Jenny Meadows, who has won numerous medals at the 800 and now coaches with her husband, Keely Hodgkinson. It was a fantastic championships. They did a session every day from 3 a.m. Wisconsin time till about 7. I got up a little later and watched that. And then we had a late morning session as well. So we got to see all the good stuff and no commercials. So I highly recommend Peacock. It rocked. And very, very happy with the coverage there. But we were talking about some of the events that we truly enjoy. The women's pole vault we spent a lot of time on with Sandy Morris and Katie Najat, gold and silver for the U.S. They will be players in Eugene, along with Tina Sutej, Holly Bradshaw. Whether Anzelika Sidorova gets to come is really up to Mr. Putin and his love of invading places that don't belong to him. So we'll have to see how that goes. The 400s on both the men and women's sides were fantastic. Shawnee Miller-Weibo, Femke Bowl, Stephanie McPherson on the women's side. On the men's side, Dream Richards. And why am I going to? Trevor Bassett from Ashland University was second. That was just a brilliant race. And the young man from Sweden, Carl Bengstrom, looked fantastic as well. Both 800s changed a lot in the last 24 hours for the races, with Elliot Giles from Great Britain pulling out with a slight injury, and Keely Hodgkinson from Great Britain pulling out with a slight injury. Ajay Wilson ran a brilliant race. So Stuart and I were commenting about it. Normally, Ajay leads from the beginning. And that's kind of been her modus operandi during most of her career. She showed a real amount of self-control, and she was rewarded with a brilliant race and one of the largest margins in world indoor history over the women's 800. It was fantastic. Mariano Garcia, who U.S. fans saw beat up Bryce Hoppel a bit at the New Balance Indoor Games, took the gold here with young, Noah Kibet, and then Bryce Hoppel. So went 1, 2, 3. It was Marco Arop from Canada, led for 605 meters. And then that party was over. Garcia took off and gave Spain its first 800 gold medal since 1985. Pretty impressive, huh? Thank God for stat books. The both 1500s I thought were pretty good. Gudaf Sagay won going away. One of the photos I titled is "The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner." I mean, she had total real estate on that race and looked really, really good. On the men's side, Samuel Tefera had a closer race with our friend Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who developed COVID or tested positive for COVID the day after. Did it affect him during the race? Of course it did. But because it's those little bitty things in a championship race, if you're just a little bit off, it changes from gold to silver to bronze to nothing. Case in point, our friend Grant Holloway at the Olympics was just a little bit off, just over that last hurdle. And Hansley Parchment noticed it in the semis and took the gold and took advantage of the situation, which is what an athlete's supposed to do. Grant left nothing up to chance in Belgrade. His races were brilliant, unforgiving, and dominating. And that's what he needed to do. And that's what he'll need to do in Eugene. All of these races are giving Eugene there's so many great stories that writers could do. And I can spend all day talking about that. The biggest one, I believe, is going to be the men's 100. Marcel Jacobs, crazy long jumper, versus Christian Coleman, and whoever else surprises us at the U.S. Olympic trials. The new Hayward Field, fantastic. I was there several times last year and loved it. It's going to be a worthy sanctuary for the World Outdoor Championships. I believe it'll be a sellout. So get your seats. I think the hardest thing is going to be is getting a place to stay. I've seen Airbnbs going for 1,000 a night. I think I saw one for 10,000 a night. We were able to do something early, thanks to the quick movement of my girlfriend, and we're able to get a place between the U.S. Championships and the World Championships for the same price people are paying for the 9 days of the Worlds. So there's places out there. I would suggest watching out for some of the hotels. I stayed at a place in Springfield last year that was like Heroin Alley, a Motel 6, and I would not stay there again. It was rather scary watching people inject various substances underneath the stairs. It was watching a pretty bad murder mystery. Anyhow, and the air conditioning went out for the last 3 days too. So glad found a place to stay. I hope everybody else can find places to stay. Thank you again for listening to my rants in the Epilogue for Athletics chat number 92. Thanks to Mike Deering, our creative and production manager at the Shoe Addicts, for recording this. And thank you to Stuart Weir for doing a late recording at 9:45 at night in lovely Oxford. This is Larry Eater. Stay safe. Tell someone that you care about them today. Okay?